Hello and welcome everyone to Teslanomics Live. I'm your host Ben Sullins, and this is the show where we break down the latest Tesla news from the week that has passed. We do it live because things move quickly in the world of Tesla and Elon Musk, and today is no exception. If you're new here, we do several stories. I'll kind of run through all of them, giving you the facts, giving you my thoughts on it and kind of the context. Then we'll go into a Q&A, which is hosted on Crowdcast. It allows people to vote on questions and kind of filter it up to where it's just a real clean, beautiful interface. You can join us there for free. You just need to get on our email list at teslanomics.co/join, and we'll send you an invite a few hours before all of our shows that we do. So first off, just thank you all for joining me. It is a special day here at Teslanomics. We're approaching 100,000 subscribers, so I want to give a big shout out to all of you. Yes, I'm planning a fun video and kind of breakdown and the history and all that to share once we actually hit that, either today or tomorrow, whatever that is. So thank you all for the support here over the past couple of years. Now, without further ado, let's just jump right into it. The first thing I want to talk about is Tesla officially reporting a profit. And this was major news last week. Of course, I live streamed the earnings call here. And then afterwards, I posted a video kind of detailing their road to profitability, kind of how they got there. And so if you missed either of those things, you can just check it out on the channel there below. Also, I do have the highlights channel for the live show here listed in the channel page below. So each one of these stories kind of just segmented out into 3 to 5 minute videos. That way, if you don't, have time to do, excuse me. If you don't have time to check out all this stuff and you just want to get those little hits, you can do that down below. So let's just recap kind of the big numbers here for Tesla, and then we'll get into some of the more interesting bits about why this is so significant. First off, GAAP net income of $312 million. That is a profit. That's what net income means. Non-GAAP of 516. We don't typically look at that number, but just to think about it, GAAP is the generally accepted accounting principles. These are kind of the final numbers after they've been audited and everything like that. Operating income of $417 million and an operating margin of 6.1%. Free cash flow of $881 million, which is significant because they have a big debt payment coming up this time next year, and having that free cash flow is going to help support that. Also, with the operating cash flow of $1.4 billion, man, these numbers are just insane. Now, $3 billion of cash and cash equivalents at the Q3 end, increased by $731 million in Q3. Now, the Model 3 GAAP and non-GAAP gross margin was greater than 20%. So what that means is that after, before expenses and some of the other things, just the per unit economics of it, the profit margin on the Model 3 itself was above 20%. This means that this is an extremely profitable product for Tesla to be selling. So the more of these they sell, the more profit they're going to make, which also lends them, a good buffer to do other things. And we'll get into what some of those may be here in a second. So one of the bits that I took out of this report, and I'll put a link to this in the description in case you want to get into the details here. They have all kinds of interesting bits. One is that the Tesla Model 3 is the best-selling car in the United States going for 2 months now, overall by revenue. What that means is that this one car is bringing in more revenue than any other car being sold in the United States. Now, in terms of sheer volume, you can see that second chart on the right here. Let me see if I can zoom in on this a little bit for you. That second chart in terms of sheer volume is the number of units that were sold, and you can see that the Tesla Model 3 is number 5. Now, the first 4, you may notice, if you're familiar with these cars in the United States, the price of which is a lot lower than the Tesla Model 3. So this is a very telling tale here. There are 2 different charts. I think the one on the left is the more interesting one because it shows how much money is being made. And when you talk about a company being profitable and successful, et cetera, that's the measure. You don't care necessarily about how many units, if the units are super cheap, as you see the first 4 listed on the chart on the right are. So amazing stuff. Tesla is just absolutely crushing it. Other bits from this report show that the cost of manufacturing cars are down 30% and that the hours spent per vehicle manufacturing are also down. Now, there are a lot of skeptics out there that are revising their outlooks. CFRA Research, their leading independent investment research firm, has upgraded their recommendation after the Q3 report. Short sellers, we love them, we know we do, have begun to close their short positions, like John Thompson, CEO of the hedge fund Veles Capital Management. Now, The idea being that you may see a flurry of negative stories coming out about Tesla here, which are being fed to reporters, and for whatever reasons they may have. I'm not going to speculate on that. A flurry of these stories to try to keep the stock from just skyrocketing. It's already up a huge percent since this report came out, but these short sellers, got to try to cover their position, so they're going to be unloading all this very soon. Meaning they were wrong, I guess is a good way to put it. Now, I enjoy looking at numbers, but I realize that we are visual creatures. So on my website, if you guys want to dig into this even further and kind of play with it in a more interactive way, I have these calculators here. This is on Teslanomics.co, and you go over to calculators, and I just added a new one here called Tesla Financials. Sometimes you get JavaScript errors depending on your browser, but here you go. So I built this little dashboard just to show you kind of what's going on. So you see the top line numbers up here, the net income, that's your profitability. It's up 143% from last quarter. Revenue is up 70%. Gross profit is up 146%. COGS, which is the cost of goods sold, is up 56%. Generally, that's not a great thing, but when you compare revenue versus cost of goods sold, you see that revenue is increasing at a faster rate, which means you're making more profit, which is great. SG&A, which is kind of overhead, related to the sales here, that's down almost 3%, which is a good number. But then R&D is also down, and I'm not a huge fan of this. So if you take a look, you can check on any of these boxes here and see what's going on. So this net income one is really interesting because this is, of course, synonymous with profitability, and this goes back all the way till when Tesla first became a public company. And you can see that they were profitable in Q1 of 2013. Then they started building out the Model S and all that kind of stuff, and then they came back and they were profitable yet again in Q3 of 2016. So just 2 years ago. Then, of course, all the money they had to spend to build out the manufacturing line and supplies and equipment, et cetera, to actually build the Model 3, put them at a $718 million loss last quarter. But then as those deliveries started to happen with a real healthy margin on them, we saw that 143% jump there. It's kind of nuts to see that. Now, will this continue? That's a big question. I think we have a lot of folks asking that question there. And by the way, on this chart, you can kind of just check any of these boxes here, and it'll update it. So you can see revenue, you can see gross profit, cost of goods sold, again, the SG&A expenses, which are down, and that's good. And then R&D, which is down, and again, I'm not super in love with that because that means they spent less money on innovating. Is kind of the way I perceive that. Maybe there were ways that they were able to just gain efficiencies, and that's how they did it. So, but we'll see. So, anyways, if you want to check this out, it's at Teslanomics.co, and you just look for the calculators and go down to Tesla Financials after the show, of course. So some of the stories coming out, CNN talking about meet the new profitable Tesla. Forbes saying Tesla's big quarterly profit suggests a major turning point to some investors, as we've seen. And then, of course, can Tesla sustain this? What's going on going forward? This is where I think there's a lot of questions about really what's going to happen with Tesla. So Elon on the call did say that they don't see a reason why they can't maintain profitability going forward. Me personally, I'm not sure if that's the best strategy. I doubt that'll be 100% true. But if they can even maintain close to profitability, that will be a huge sign. Now, all of this, of course, is dependent upon stability on the manufacturing of the Model 3, which they confirmed is going great. So it's one of those things where they're definitely in a good place. And the next big things coming up for them, of course, are the Model Y. We don't know where they're going to manufacture that. A lot of people think they're going to just build out at the Gigafactory in Nevada, which would make a lot of sense if the batteries are being made there. Other people speculate they may build a new factory or may buy an old one and retrofit. Both of those totally viable options. But if we're looking at Model Y production in 2020, it's not too long from now, that means they've probably already been scouting this out or figured it out and have maybe already begun to execute. And we haven't seen any of those details yet. So that's kind of one of those things where I'd like to see and hear more about that coming up. I didn't hear anyone ask that on the earnings call. I'm sorry, there were questions about it, but no details coming out. So there's that. And then, of course, the factory in China should be up and running here in a year or so. That debt is all going to be locally financed, so it won't really impact the rest of the company. And then, of course, the Tesla Semi and my Roadsters, our Roadsters, all of us. all this stuff coming up, lots of money that they're going to have to spend here to build these new things. So can they maintain profitability in the future? It's an interesting question. I think with the volume production of the Model 3, as long as the demand holds strong, possibly. But if they don't, I don't think anyone would really be totally upset about it, right? Some shorts may want to try to recapture their positions, but really, I think it's okay at this point. They've shown that you can do this. You can manufacture cars at volume, and the fifth most voluminous selling car in the United States. So not like, I'm objectively saying that. And then, when you want to build these new models, it's going to take a lot of money. So I could see them going into the red, but, we'll have to kind of stay tuned. Of course, I'll update you as time goes on. That's what this is all about. And that's why I'm so stoked you guys are here, because I just love looking at the world through the lens of data. And this is one of the most exciting things that we can follow. So that's kind of what we do here. All right. Next, I want to talk about something kind of interesting, and this is that the Right to Repair Act just passed federally in the United States. And so what that means is that Tesla had to open up their service manuals so you can know exactly what parts are in the car and everything like that. So here, and I'll put a link to this down in the description. It's epc.teslamotors.com if you're wondering. You previously would have had to log in here as a supplier. That's not my actual login to it, but instead now you can click General Public and you get this parts catalog. Pretty cool. And so on here you can see there's a Model S parts catalog. This is the 2012 to 2016. The newer one after that. Then you have the Model X. These photos are pretty awesome. The original Roadster. Wow. And then the Model 3. So if you want to dig in, if you're just super geeked on what is in here, you can click inside of these here. Let's see. Look at the Model 3 body shop. Let's go back. I think I clicked on the wrong one. Let's go down. And there's a tooling one as well. Okay, here you go. The Model 3 parts catalog. So if you want to see like the bumper and fascia, kind of what that looks like, you can actually go in and see the detailed diagrams, the part numbers, all this kind of stuff. They remove the prices there. That's probably makes sense. So that way they don't have any people digging into something that's not going to really mean anything to them. So you can see, just all this kind of stuff. So I wonder if I could actually see. I had some repairs done on mine. Was that the chassis? It was the body. I forget which part. Exterior fittings. Yeah, I'd have to go dig in. Wheel arch liners, underlay, seats, front seat. Yeah. Anyways, it's kind of neat. And if you guys are, geeked out on this stuff and you want to be repairing your Tesla by hand, like my friend Rich does, which, by the way, if you've not seen his channel, Rich Rebuilds, fantastic, super amazing stuff. I love just watching every video for him probably takes months to make, because he's like literally breaking down a Tesla and then rebuilding it from scratch. So super impressive stuff. So yeah, I just thought that was an interesting thing to mention. Hopefully this opens up the idea that maybe other service providers will be popping up. I know Tesla right now doesn't really do that. You have to go to Tesla for all of your service, which kind of sucks. But down the road, maybe this is a step in that direction. We can start to see, because certainly there's going to need, with millions of these cars hitting the streets, you're going to need other shops than just the Tesla ones, because those are, they just don't scale. And honestly, I don't know if there's a need for that. It does kind of help that transition, I would say, when you open it up to other folks. So there you have it. Now, on the earnings call as well, Elon talked about the $35,000 version of the Model 3 and said that it's probably under 6 months away. Now, for some people, that's disheartening, because you are hoping to get one and get a federal tax credit in the United States, which currently is going to end at the end of this quarter, at the end of 2018, just a couple months away. So that would mean that you're not going to get the $35,000 model plus the $7,500 federal tax rebate, plus any other state incentives if you live in one of the states that have that. It's just not going to happen. You will get a portion of it, but you won't get the full thing. Now, something to think about when it comes to this is that you're actually getting the worst value in terms of the dollars per range. I talked about this last week. So think about that. If you ever want to go on a road trip, those added miles, even if it's just 40 miles, like the mid-range currently offers you, is going to make a big difference when you're doing road trips, depending on where you're going. But I can attest from being a Tesla owner for almost 3 years now, that whenever with my older Model S, 20, 30 miles could mean, an hour less driving time. So it really does add up. up. So if you are considering a Model 3, I would, see if you can afford it. Of course, you don't want to stretch your budget too thin there on your car. But, it's one of those things that if you can, it may be more beneficial for you to take advantage of it now than it would be to wait. And so if you guys are out of the loop on that, the pricing has been kind of fluctuating on these cars. Let's go check out, like, maybe just try to order a Model 3. Because the thing that I really think about with this is that it's that monthly payment that really hurts. So if I go to order now, you can see that it's $46,000 before savings or anything else. So I want to point this out because people don't understand how the tax credit works. And I've done videos on this, but I'll just kind of summarize it for you. If you don't owe at least $7,500 in taxes, then you will not be able to take full advantage of it. So what that means is that anybody maybe under $50,000 and making less than $50,000 or so in the US, you're likely not going to be able to take full advantage of it. So there's that, right? So there's that. And then also, when you buy the car, the $7,500 tax rebate doesn't reduce the price of your loan. So if you were to go buy this, and let's say we're $46,000, you're going to need to get a loan for that entire amount. In fact, if you show here, it'll show you $657 a month. Now, if you could get $100,000 off this, you could get the entire thing for free, but that loan, when you first get it, is still going to have to be for that amount. And until you get that rebate, you're not going to, I'm sorry, that credit, because they don't actually send you a check, you're not going to see that in any meaningful way. Now, if you did want to kind of realize that credit and then reduce your monthly payment, basically reducing the price of the car, then you would have to refinance at that time. So just think about that. The tax credit is there, but you may not qualify for all of it, and it likely isn't going to change your monthly loan payment. So net, when you add all your expenses up and everything else, it will apply. But when it comes to that monthly payment, which I think a lot of us focus on when we think about, which car we want or which car we can afford, it's probably not going to affect it unless you then do some other gymnastics there with your finances. So it's one of those things, like, I don't think people realize that. In fact, when I built my calculator on my website, it was one of those things where people were arguing with me, oh, well, how come you didn't reduce the loan payment by the incentive amount? It's because it doesn't actually offset that. So something to think about, In this case, I think probably your best value is the long-range rear-wheel drive. If you live in a colder climate, it sounds like most people recommend getting an all-wheel drive. So, buying now before the end of the year is going to be a good thing. If you do get it before then, you will be able to take advantage of the referral program as well, which will give you 6 months of free supercharging, as long as you can apply the code even after you've ordered it. But before you take delivery is what people have been emailing and telling me. So if you guys are in that boat, you've already ordered it and don't have a referral code, hit me up on Facebook or on Twitter, and I can send you one to make sure you still get that. Or, you can go find one online, whatever. So anyways, so it's an interesting thing that, the $35,000 model isn't coming before the tax credit's running out. There may be some legislation that's being passed that changes that and extends it, whatever. But for right now, your best bet is probably to order the mid-range. And I would recommend that just because of the mileage personally. Again, you have to think about that monthly payment and how that affects the rest of your life, your situation, whatever. I don't know all of that. So, take that into consideration. Don't stretch yourself too thin there. But, the clock's ticking on this. So let me know what you guys think about that down in the comments there. Okay. Next, I want to talk about a report that I saw on Electrek about Tesla improving regenerative braking on Model 3 through an over-the-air software update. Now, this is a strange thing to me because I hadn't heard this anywhere else, and I actually can't find another article that cites this. So I'm not sure where this is coming from or what exactly. Now, if you guys know and you know about the update, because I don't have the latest version, but I haven't seen an actual screenshot saying we've updated regenerative braking. In this report, it's basically the author here talking about his experience, and so I'm not sure where this falls, but I wanted to bring this up because it's something that plays into the next story, and it's interesting that Tesla would do this and not make an official statement about it, and I haven't seen anything like that. So this report currently just seems kind of uncorroborated to me, but I did want to bring it up because Consumer Reports is giving Tesla kind of a bad score about their reliability. And Consumer Reports previously had the thing where they ranked the Tesla Model 3 low because of the issue with the braking, and Tesla did do the software update to fix that. So that other report about their improvement of the regen braking, I'm not sure where that's coming from, but if you guys know, let me know. So this here, and let me rephrase this layout. This here was an interesting report. They do this every year, okay? And I can't stress enough that whether or not you're whatever preconceived kind of bias or whatever you're coming here with, probably a fan of Tesla, you have to respect Consumer Reports. Consumer Reports has been the best in the business for decades now. So you really have to give them the credit for doing the work here. And I did dig into all that stuff about how they go about doing this and all that. So I think it's one of those things where we may not like these results, but you have to give them some credit on how they go about it, because they really are the best, and they've been doing it for the longest time, or a very long time. Now, the interesting thing here, so this is looking at the brand, not necessarily the individual car, and they have a survey that goes out, and they ask about the different types of repairs, and they categorize those types of repairs, and they kind of add it all up, and you can see exactly here on this report the most reliable, tied for number one here, is the Lexus and Toyota, which are the same company, and the least reliable model, the average reliability score, and their most reliable model there. So interestingly, the Prius C is the most reliable. Now, Tesla has dropped a little bit here, and they keep going down, number 27, almost at the very bottom, with a score of 32. The Model X being the least most reliable, and the Model 3 being the most reliable. And this is down, I believe, 6 spots. Is that what that means there? Change from 2018. Yeah, so this is a 6-spot drop. Now this is interesting to me, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about it because, again, all credit and respect to Consumer Reports and what they do and how they do it. But it's weird that they would be so incredibly low when they are the highest rated in so many other areas, notably that people are willing to buy another Tesla, or would they buy their Tesla again higher than any other brand, even above Porsche, which Porsche has like a really strong kind of community that's been a big fan of them for decades as well. So I actually think Porsche and Tesla are very similar in that way. Obviously, they make different cars, but they both have these communities that just once you fall in love with that brand, you are just with it for life, and that's exactly what happens. So it's interesting to me that Tesla is so low on this versus some of the other ways that we look at the rankings of Tesla, and I'm just curious kind of what your guys' thoughts are on this. This is extremely low. I mean, you're tied for second to last with Cadillac here. Ironically, the two with the best kind of autopilot stuff out there. Now, again, I did look into this. If you guys are curious, you can go dig into exactly how they do it. And I believe them in what they do. All right, so it's one of those things where we want to look at the data and we want to be honest, even if those results aren't what we want. So curious what your guys' thoughts are on that. Have you had issues? If you've had issues, what do you consider those to be? The surprising result for this on me was that the Model 3 was the most reliable. I'm not, to me, that's not been my experience. And I've had my Model 3 since January, so 10 months or so. And so, yeah, it's interesting. The Model X is no surprise, though. The doors are notoriously bad, have issues with them. But again, this is probably one of those things too. That this is still a fledgling company. They're still very early in their development, and it's not something that a few years down the road we would expect to see. Of course, they change the manufacturing process every time they put out a new car. The Model Y, for example, has this thing called the Flex Circuit, which should reduce the amount of wiring down to 100 meters, which is like an insanely low amount for an electric car. And so if they're able to do that, yeah, they're there'll probably be some issues because they are constantly pushing the envelope. It would be nice to see them with the older models become more and more consistent, though. And as far as I know, they have. Of course, every time there's a new car, the first people to get it, there are all these little minor issues, and so maybe that's why this sample set is kind of skewed one way or the other. So let me know what you guys think about that. I'm really curious if you've had issues in kind of how you rate them compared to maybe some of the other cars you've had. Leave me a comment down below. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about before we get into Q&A is a new feature from Tesla that just came out called Navigate on Autopilot. This was previously part of version 9, and with version 9, this was included, but then they pulled it back, from the initial launch, and then it was just added there shortly after. So the way it works, you set up navigation, right, and then you get this button, this Navigate on Autopilot button. You click that. Then you you start driving, and you're in autopilot, and it does this thing where it goes from the 2 lanes into 1. It does the adaptive cruise control and the turning, the lane keep for you. So it does all that. The merging is good. I tested this out personally in my neighbor's Model S, which is a newer one. And then this is the part that I thought was interesting. It has these interchanges here. I swear this is right by my house, by the way, where it automatically goes freeway to freeway. My experience was that wasn't perfect. It did fail on us one time, but again, the roads are kind of difficult and unpredictable. And then when it goes to actually exit the freeway, what you'll see is it'll put you on the off ramp and then disengage with this nice little chime there. So I think it's pretty cool. The thing that isn't great about it right now is that there is a confirm to shift lanes. So if it needs to get off or get on from the on or off ramp, it will ask you to confirm that. And on the Model on the Model 3, you have to click I believe it's the turn signal. But then on the Model S and X, you do there's a separate one, in case you guys didn't know. There's a separate autopilot stock there. So you have the other two that are normal like that, and then you have the autopilot one separately. I think they call it the cruise stock, in case you don't have autopilot but you have regular cruise control. And so you can just tap that's lower, and it's a bit easier. So in my experience driving it, that's kind of what I thought about that. I do think this feature is nice. The main reason I like this feature is that it will help you not miss your exit, which when you're in autopilot, that is something that happens a lot, where you're driving and you've the way I do it is I kind of lean back, in the seat. I take my feet off the pedal, so I kind of have them up, and then I rest my hands on my knees and kind of holding the steering wheel right there at the bottom. So I'm still hands on the wheel, eyes forward, but I'm in a much more relaxed position, which just makes even that little bit of difference makes a drive, let's say to LA from San Diego, a lot more enjoyable. I don't know if enjoyable. It can't be enjoyable because there's just no enjoying that. But it's a lot less miserable, I guess you'll say. But so that makes a lot of difference. Now the challenge, of course, then is you need to get off and figure out your freeway and all your situation like that. So it's one of those things where if you're kind of not zoned out, but not really focused, you're focusing just on looking straight ahead, not on all the exits and turns and all that. Then this is a great feature because it's going to remind you of that. It will, in fact, automatically throw on the turn signal, which is kind of cool, and then it will ask you to confirm before you get over. Now, they reported that soon after or soon from now, now that this feature is out there on wide release, it will automatically do the lane changes after it kind of gets comfortable with you, I guess. So we'll kind of see how that goes. I think right now people are maybe agitated. It's one of those things. You're flying down the road maybe 70 miles an hour or so in this thing, and yes, it's the safest car ever made, all that, but technology has bugs. So I personally am a fan of a slower adoption rate of these kind of things until we're just totally comfortable with it, because it only takes one glitch, one bug, one error to kind of make things go real bad. So there you go. That's all the news for today, folks. Now we're going to hop into the Q&A, and that starts with Patreon. Patreon, of course, is where you can get backstage access to the show. You get access to all the upcoming news stories. You get to see, you get to see all the videos that I'm working on and the planning process behind the scenes. You get automatically added to that. Plus, you get your questions answered first here on the live show on Monday. So if you're interested in helping support the show, you can do so for as little as $1 a month. Literally something you won't even miss. I guarantee it. And you can learn more about that at Teslanomics.co/Patreon. Okay, let's go over to the first question here from Wendell Beverly. Wendell asks, will the original Model S and X still get the free supercharging for life that originally came with those cars? Buying a used one recommended for that bonus. It depends. So, geez, when was it? Was it 2017? I think it was, if the car was made, I believe, man, you're going to have to Google this, but it was around May of 2017 that cars manufactured prior to that have unlimited free supercharging for life for anyone that owns them. The free supercharging is with the car. So, for example, my 2013 Model S, which I bought in 2016, will always have free supercharging, even if I sold it to you today. And, message me if you want to buy it. But, yeah, so then after, I think it was in May of 2017, if I recall, cars manufactured after that, the owner would get free supercharging with the referral code, but if they ever sold that car to the new owner would no longer have free supercharging. Then at this point, as of today, you use a referral code, you get free supercharging for 6 months, and then it expires. So that's kind of where we're at. Oh, and I also believe at the same time, cars made after May 2017, if you didn't have a referral code, they would get 400 kilowatt hours of free charging, which, depending on how you drive, maybe adds up to around 1,000 miles or so. So there was that. It's kind of I don't know, confusing, if that didn't confuse you enough. But usually the older ones, if you're looking on the used inventory on the Tesla website, do have it for life, and it will indicate on that car's profile. And of course, you can call a salesperson and ask them as well. So hope that answers your question, Wendell. James Kavanaugh Jr. asks, is Tesla technology truly open source? If so, can the big three just build EVs with Tesla's batteries and motors? I assume Tesla gets some form of compensation, licensing, etc. I don't know of anyone that's fully tested this theory, but NIO from China, NIO, has a SUV, I believe, called the ES8, which is based on the Model X architecture. And so, yes, as far as I know, they are. Elon, I think even just recently on the earnings call said it, that everything is open source. You can come use it. You can use our supercharger network, just build an adapter, things like that. So yes, I believe they are, based on those statements and the little bit of evidence from that company, NIO. Why the other automakers aren't doing it, my guess is ego, pride. They don't want to they don't want to admit that. However, there was a little quip I saw about Daimler wanting to work with Tesla again, which would be super interesting, because honestly, when it comes to EVs, batteries are the thing, and so Tesla makes batteries in greater volume and better quality than anyone. So I think honestly, if you're an EV company wanting to start up now, let's say a Lucid or somebody like that, I think you should just go to Tesla and say, look, I want a battery pack, and then I'm going to build my own car on top of it. I don't think Tesla would have a problem with that at all. So, yeah, thanks for the question. Bridget asks, go down here. Have you noticed additional phantom drain on your 3 since the version 9 update? I finally Wi-Fi'd my 3 at home to get the update, which I've had for 3 to 4 weeks now. Could that cause the drain? Something like the car pinging for Wi-Fi from my driveway? I haven't yet checked the daily stats to verify increase, but it seems to have gone up. Well, it's an interesting question. Certainly, the software on the Model 3 is much more volatile in these regards. I don't know if that's the right word, but it seems to be, and this is looking at a fleet of thousands of vehicles. It seems to be that different versions of the software have different effect on phantom drain. Of course, you can measure that with my app TesLab, and we do kind of studies on this periodically. So I'm about due for another one here at the end of the year, but I haven't personally noticed it, mostly because my wife drives the 3 and I just drive the S, which I haven't had that issue on really ever. So yeah, thanks for the question, Bridget. And check out the TesLab. It's TEZLABapp.com. You can learn more and download it, and it'll kind of monitor that for you. Thanks for the question. Jeff asks, hi Ben, love your show and analysis. Thank you, Jeff. Could you please be so kind as to post a reply to this week to my question I just posted on Patreon community about the Tesla trip idea? Please free the data. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, I'll have a look, Jeff. After the show. Chamberlain asks on Joe Rogan show, correct me if I'm wrong, but Elon, when Elon explained how they had to modify the AC to fit the original Roadster, and then was asked if he was going into building a new AC, and he said that he cannot discuss as it may be a future development product. My question is, when AC runs, water is generated as a byproduct. Do you think that Tesla might use that water to make it drinkable, or just to fill the water tank for the windshield wipers even better as an option for Tesla pickup? Yeah, interesting. I think Gally, my friend Gally from Hyperchange TV, did a video on this, on what he thinks they might do. So I would go check that out. I think there are a couple different things there in terms of you may be crossing the lines there between energy usage at the home and an air conditioning unit versus the car. The Roadster had all kinds of problems. The AC was one of them. So yeah, thanks for the question there. Alex asks, what is your opinion on the Tesla frequent price changes, configuration, and changes and such? I understand that they are a business, but it feels like they cannot seem to find the right footing with pricing. It also seems that adding an extra 1,000 or lowering by 3,000 will not make much a difference to the bottom line. It feels that the only outcome is a bunch of unhappy clients. Yeah, so I think what you're referring to, Alex, is recently Tesla made some price changes on a number of things. So first off, the mid-range went up from 45 to 46,000, and then the paint also shifted, and then they got rid, or they now are including the $5,000 performance package, I think is what it's called. If you order the performance car, it's now included in that. So yeah, it does seem odd. It seems confusing. I would love to talk to someone from Tesla about it, just to clarify. And I do hope that they can solidify and kind of standardize that thing. And yeah, you're right. I mean, it is kind of a weird thing how maybe other car manufacturers and things can, was not near like who knows what the price of a certain thing is for a Toyota Corolla, really. And then when you go to a dealer, you buy it and they're trying to, upsell you and all kinds of stuff or whatever. So I don't know. Yeah, it's probably just because Tesla's so high visibility, everything they do, that we notice. But yeah, it would be nice. I agree if they could kind of stabilize that, because I think it's one of those things where it's kind of like, man, what are you guys doing? So, all right, now let's head over to Crowdcast, and thank you everyone for waiting there. Let me hop over. Here we go. And looking good. Okay. By the way, if you guys ever go watch this on Crowdcast, or even if you're just watching on YouTube now and then you jump back to Crowdcast, what you can do is, after I answer a question here, you can see what that question was and click View Answer. That's why there's a green button here that says Start Answering, because on Crowdcast, it will timestamp the video, my response here to that question, so that way you can come back and just jump straight to it. So that's a cool feature, again, and one reason why I love using Crowdcast for these things. So here we go. Let's see. Question from Didier. Hi, Ben. Way back when Tesla started to build the first superchargers, I heard they considered putting solar panels, and so the reliance on the grid would be lower. But so far, I haven't heard of any supercharger locations equipped with solar panels. Any news on this? I'm sure Leon has thought about it very seriously. Yeah, there are loads of them that have solar panels. I believe the one in Fremont, sorry, not Fremont, in Hawthorne has them. And then, someone here commented about the Kettleman City one has them. Yeah, I think there are loads of them that have them. Some of them, it doesn't make sense because maybe the location or things like that. Like, for example, I go back and forth between Phoenix and San Diego every year, and there's some out kind of in the middle of nowhere, always at a Carl's Jr., don't know why. And so for them, it maybe doesn't make sense because they don't have enough usage to warrant it. But yeah, that's certainly out there. They could do better, and they've stated they're going to, especially with the semi truck, which will have a guaranteed per kilowatt hour price, I think, of 7 cents per kilowatt hour, which is crazy cheap. And if you're in a part of the world where that's below that, enjoy it. Out here, I think we're at like 26 cents on average in California or something like that. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's maybe you haven't heard of it, but it's certainly out there. So thanks for the question. Brian asks, I know there probably isn't much data out on this yet, but how do you expect the Model 3 to depreciate compared to the S and gas cars? Yeah, it's an interesting question. So generally the Teslas hold their value very well. Autolist did a study, or has done a couple studies on this, and they're like a car sales listing site, so they have data on it. But the thing that's interesting is the real differentiator for, let's say, the Model S was that at some point in time, right around before I got mine, that any new cars had autopilot hardware, and previous cars didn't have it and could not be retrofitted. That fact that it could not be retrofitted created a huge disparity in those two versions. So I would say the thing I think about with this is, yes, of course, depreciation happens, just how it goes. But the only real like major factor that would change kind of what we've seen with the other Model S and Model X since that autopilot shift is if there's any new features that come out on a new version of the Model 3, which are not able to be added to the previous ones. And it would have to be something like completely different. Now, the only thing that really comes to mind is the full self-driving chip, the new hardware that they're making for full self-driving. And that they've said is possible to be retrofitted. In fact, if you've already bought the car with full self-driving, it will be retrofitted at no extra cost. And Elon said it takes about 30 minutes to do the update. So one of those things where I don't foresee anything right now that would majorly change the depreciation curve of the Model 3 compared to what we're seeing with the S and X. And both of the S and X seem to hold their value a bit better than some of their counterparts. So go check out Autolist Study. You'd have to Google it. I don't think it's just visible on their site. It's not easy to navigate around, but it is there. So check that out. Thanks for the question, Brian. Here, Abdullah asks, is anyone having problems with Phantom Drain and Model 3 after version 9? Yep, we just got a question on that. I lost 20 miles in one day and 18 the next. Is that usual? That's high. That is high. I would say maybe 3 to 4 is normal. So yeah, it sounds like I should probably dig into this more since other people are reporting it. Thanks for the question, Abdullah. James asks, is it true that the 35 standard battery Model 3 will not have a glass roof to reduce the total cost? How much different will this entry-level Model 3 be compared to the medium range and long range version? It's a good question. I'm not sure. I don't know of any official word on that yet. Maybe that's what people are speculating. I do recall people talk, rumors about this early on before we even knew the details of the first Model 3s, like before the Model 3 delivery event. So possibly it wouldn't surprise me, but none of the other cars have it, so yeah, I don't know. It would feel kind of weird to me if it didn't, but hey, maybe it is cheaper. I mean, I don't know, is it really much cheaper to have the glass versus the other one? Yeah, who knows. We'll have to kind of hang tight and see, but again, the $35,000 one is going to be the cheapest kind of most watered down version, so yeah, I would not be surprised. Thanks for the question, James. Phil asks, I've noticed that the dashcam feature corrupts the USB drive when recording and exiting the vehicle. Would there be a fix to this, or are we expected to manually stop the icon every time? So I agree with you that I when I first got the dashcam and did that video on it, I had some serious troubles figuring that out. It took me several trips, and it was kind of annoying that I had to go drive the same area over and over again because it kept failing. So no, I've seen that as well. However, I did buy a new one. I bought that USB Fit, SanDisk Fit, I think it's called. It's basically the size of the USB port itself, and it was 128 gig drive. And then from there, I formatted it and put it in and haven't touched it since, and it's been working ever since. So I don't know, maybe try a new drive. That's what seemed to work for me. Thanks for the question, Phil. And yeah, I hope it does get resolved. Ali asks, I had to pay $5,000 for the performance upgrade package on the PD3. Now it's free. I'm not that mad since I do have free supercharging, but it's pretty annoying. I've seen some people getting really mad, but it isn't just how Tesla works. You can never be certain on pricing. Anyways, will this devalue the car when I want to resell it later on? I mean, you have the package, so I don't know, maybe a little bit. I thought Elon said that they would refund you though. Maybe contact the service center and ask them. Yeah, it is kind of weird for that to happen. And I thought he said he would refund it. So yeah, there's that. And also maybe if you didn't order it, maybe you should get it for free anyway. So yeah, hopefully now that they're profitable, they can kind of figure these things out a bit more. Thanks for the question, Ali. Robert asks, I work as a real estate appraiser and drive an average of 150 to 200 miles a day. I've been looking at a used 2015 Model S75D or a new Model 3 long range. Need autopilot to help with those long, tiring days. My concern is warranty and, of course, range. I should never be further than 30 miles from a supercharger. A CPO Model S will have about the same warranty as a new Model 3. Which car would you suggest? Yeah, so I'm going to go with the Model 3 long range here, even though I like the Model S more. The reason is that the Model S 75D is going to have a substantially lower amount of miles. And so if you're driving 150 to 200 miles a day, plus your car is sitting outside and kind of draining, maybe in warmer climates or something like that, you could come home every day almost depleted, and that's going to add some strain to your battery. Of course, the warranty and all that will cover it, but I would say that the Model 3 having 310 miles of range will have a substantial, you will noticeably feel different about that at the end of your day. And I can just say that from having a car that has a shorter range versus the Model 3 myself. So I would go with the Model 3 long range based on that alone. Thanks for the question, Robert, and good luck. Curtis asks, do you see the Model Y to come out with a price under $70,000 starting out based on the Model 3 timeline? Do you think it would be a fair estimate to say that the mid-price version of the Model Y would not be available until 2022 or 2023? It'd be hard to put a deposit down and wait, see only the top premium versions out for the first year. And still have to wait another year. Yeah, I would say, so yes, of course, that is the strategy. We've seen it now with the Model S, the Model X, and the Model 3. The most expensive one comes up first because they need to recoup all the CapEx that they spent building whatever it is they needed to make the car. So that's just a strategy, so expect that. $70,000, I would hope that the top of the line one is under that. Maybe you could, option it up if you added full self-driving and maybe some other, seating configurations or something like that. So maybe, but I would guess that it would probably come around 70,000 for top of the line. That's a good number. Of course, I think the cheaper one or the cheapest one that they'll probably advertise is maybe 45,000, which honestly I didn't really know this until recently, but in the world of SUVs is not that crazy expensive. So. I'm definitely going to be putting a deposit down and getting one. I may keep it. I would like a larger vehicle with longer range. That's kind of my big thing right now. I love my Model S, but the 200-mile top range is just not enough for me. And maybe that's just because I was spoiled driving the Model 3 for so long. So thanks for the question, Curtis. And yeah, stay tuned. George asks, did I just see that the Model 3 Performance is now free? Don't know about free. I thought this was 10,000, then it dropped to 5,000. Tweet from Elon. I would have paid 5,000. I'm not sure what you're talking about. The 5,000 for the performance upgrade is included in the price. Yes. If you have questions on that, you should call your sales rep, see what's going on. If you haven't taken delivery of your car yet, maybe you can have them add it, change it. I don't know. There you go. Hope that helps, George. James asks, is it true that the $35,000, we just covered this one? I don't know why it's still there. Leo asks, after watching Alex from E for Electric, do you think the Fred Lambert use the Electric Twitter account to personally call out Tesla because of personal, or do you think that it was an actual journalism to point out the price change? Yeah, so okay, recap if you guys are unfamiliar. Leo, correct me if I'm wrong. Fred from Electrek posted something criticizing Tesla about the price change to the Performance Model 3, that $5,000 package we were just talking about. And then I think he and Elon went back and forth. I'm not quite sure. I didn't follow it. It sounds like I really don't know what to make of it personally. But, I think that there is a weird thing. I'll just say this kind of in a more general sense. There's definitely like a weird thing when it comes to a brand versus a person versus so if you think about it here, like let's just bring it home to my channel here on Teslanomics. Teslanomics is like a show, right? We do this live show. I do these videos specifically about Tesla. Then on Twitter, it's me as well, but I comment and throw out other stuff, unrelated to that. I think that does cause some confusion because if I'm talking about, let's say, cell phones or something on Twitter, people are going to be wondering why the hell I'm doing that. So it is a weird relationship when you have like a person that is a brand. Now, I would say the difference between something like what I have is this YouTube channel is me. It's about, it's me looking at the world through the lens of data. and specifically I'm looking at electric cars. So it's a different dynamic than, so in no way do I ever try to pass off as a journalist, I think is one of the big differences here. So when Fred tweets as electric, I believe they're trying to pass off as a journalist versus like a social media personality or something. And so I think that's maybe where there's some weird contention there. It definitely has a kind of confused dynamic, I guess is the way I would describe it. I didn't really follow it, so I don't know, and I don't care who's angry at who or whatever. Really, the drama there is kind of goofy to me. But anyways, I think that's maybe what's going on. It's a confusion between a personality, a brand, a journalist versus like social media and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we'll see. Thanks for the question, Leo. Jeremiah asks, with the removal of full self-driving from the customer-facing order process, I know it's still available from contacting them. Does it inherently force everyone who doesn't pre-purchase it to pay the post-purchase price? I doubt it. I guess I can see the large number of people finding out after the fact and then getting mad. No, I don't recommend it. As you point out, I can't imagine that they would make you pay the like post-purchasing price if you call them after you place your order, but before you get your car. I've heard of a lot of people changing their configurations after they've actually placed the order. So it would be really strange if they did that. Yeah. Thanks for the question, Jeremiah. Thanks for joining me. Walt asks, I was thinking of ordering a new 260-mile Model 3 for my wife. Can I use my previous Model 3 code to get 613 supercharging? I believe so. Also, would I be eligible for the state and federal discount and PG&E on this second car since I received my first 3 in June 2018? I believe so. Again, that last part I would talk to your accountant or tax person or whomever you talk those things about, but you should get those rebates and stuff for every car that you purchase. As far as I understand, there may be some limits and caps depending on your income, et cetera, but yeah, I believe that's how it works. Thanks for the question, Walt. And yes, use your code. Didier asks, do you know how wide the camera spectrum is on the autopilot cameras? If they were able to see in the infrared part, they could at least some of the time identify heat sources like humans, animals, and whatever to be usable by the autopilot AI for improved safety. I don't know that. I don't have details on that. I would love to see a white paper or something from those guys about how all this stuff works. But of course, because Tesla's so high profile, it'd have to go through legal review and probably be completely stripped of the useful bits that we want to know. So in any event, yeah, don't know, but I hope you're right. Franz asks, any word on when the fob will be available? Spoke to Tesla yesterday. They were told they have no info. That was the same is what I heard. If you guys are unfamiliar, the Model 3 is getting a key fob that looks something like this. I think it looks almost identical to this. This is the Model S key fob. This one says Model S on the bottom. And so the other one will be for the Model 3. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a fan, but after seeing those people steal that, I was a little disheartened by it. I definitely enabled the pin to drive thing in my car. So, yeah, we'll see. Stay tuned. Bobby asks, what is the best way to suggest improvements to the software with Tesla? There is a bug report feature if you press the voice command in the car, and then you can say bug report and then submit one right there. I think that works well. Joe asks, with the recently released parts catalog, how likely will we be able to self-repair our Tesla vehicles? Yeah, the problem is they're not going to sell you any parts unless you're a certified repair shop. And so that's kind of really the problem there. I do love the idea of third-party repair shops being certified and coming up, because obviously the capacity of the service center and the service team, as great as they are, is limited. Even though they can do a lot of the repairs remotely, et cetera, it still is like a very limited amount. So just like iPhones can be repaired by other companies and other people, I would like to see Tesla do this, because just for the sheer scale. Yeah. Thanks for the question, Joe. Peter asks, an update took delivery of my Model 3 on June 6th and sideswiped June 9th. Oh, car was in the garage waiting a rear fender for 3 months. Yeah, that sucks. Repaired and returned on October 12th. What would be a fair compensation for loss of vehicle for the entire summer? I live in Montreal and good weather is a premium. Looking for advice, as Tesla mentioned they are open to compensation. Huh. That's cool. I didn't know that Tesla would do that. I can't imagine it's Tesla's fault, right? I would imagine that the other person's insurance Although, yeah, I don't know how it works up in Montreal, so no idea how, what that cost would be. Maybe the cost of a rental car during that time, something like that. Yeah, glad you got it back, Peter. All right, I'm going to go with one more question here. I know that Tesla has always been a non-traditional in the way that they sell their cars, but the volatile price change might be taking it a bit far. It feels like when you buy a lobster, you get it at the market price. What's next? Stock prices will reflect prices. Stocks up, car prices down. I don't know. Yeah, I agree. It's kind of weird. Buy a Model S. That price hasn't changed really. All right, one more. Alan asks, seriously considering buying my first Tesla, but weighing all of my options first. 3 great choices, all in the same price range and similar range, including the new mid-range Model 3, 2013-14 S85, and the 2016 S85 new fascia. All things considered, what do you believe is the best bang for the buck? I love the Model 3, but travel a lot, so free supercharging on the S is attractive. I would go with the 2016 S75 because you'll get autopilot, you'll get a decent amount of range, and you'll get the free supercharging and all that, or you should. Yeah, I would go with that one out of those 3 choices. Cool. Thank you, everyone, for joining me today. It's been a good day. Don't you agree? I hope you do. Go ahead and leave me a comment letting me know what's going on. Like and subscribe, all that. If you're new here, you guys have been hanging out this whole time. It's amazing. Got more stuff coming out. Like I said, we're about to hit 100,000 subscribers, so it's been an absolute blast, sharing these insights, digging into the details, looking at the world through the lens of data like I like to do. So, just much more to come, and so stay tuned, guys. And until then, don't forget, when you free the data, your mind will follow. I'll see you back here in the next one.